Hey guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Likes Books. I just filmed a 17-minute video, and then it stopped, and I'm really upset. So, I'm gonna get right to this. I'm missing my mom a lot today. My mom passed away 8 years ago. We had a love-hate relationship, but one thing we loved was books. My mom got me to love books. She read all of my life. She read to me. She made me read books when I was younger. She suggested books for me to read. And I was thinking a lot today about her. And it's a beautiful day outside. It's a day that my mom would have made some sun tea and sat outside and just read. And I was thinking a lot about how the books that we read, mold us into the people that we are. And then I was thinking about the fact that the books that our parents read or our teachers or our friends mold them into affecting who we are. See? So, I was wanting to talk about my mom's favorite books today, because I kind of was like thinking back on what her favorite books were. She talked about the same books all her life, and my BookTube would have loved my mother. She had these incredible bookshelves, which are over there, and she had them separated by like Irish literature and like Southern literature and like Japanese literature and Catherine Ann Porter and all these things. And when she passed away, like I went through and I picked out what I wanted and I put it in a box, and the rest I just got rid of. And I wish I hadn't. I mean, she had the whole collection of Catherine Ann Porter. I've never read Catherine Ann Porter. And so, but I had a box in the basement, and so I went through them today, and I picked out the books that she talked about most in her life. So I found some pictures. The weird thing is I could not find the current pictures of my mom before she passed away. She was a cute woman, very stylish. When she was in the 60s, very bohemian and hippie-ish, worked at Northwestern Library when my dad was doing his residency. In Chicago. This is her drinking a beer in Colorado along the river. And then this is her working at Northwestern Library. Oh, who's that? Oh, who's that? Oh. And then here she was the year that she passed away. You can't really see it, but hi, Mom. Anyway, my mom, as she got older, she was kind of beatnik and hippie-ish still, but she loved to wear makeup, loved to do her hair, loved to wear a good, she rotated a lot towards black towards the end of her life and big black sunglasses, but she loved to wear makeup every day, and lipstick and eyeliner, and always did her hair. And that didn't stop her from, ever reading books like James Joyce. Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man was one of her favorite books. Did you like that little dig I got in there? About makeup and all that kind of stuff. But it's the truth. I mean, my mother loved to be part of the world, and she wanted to go to New York and have drinks with Woody Allen on Thursday nights. I know a lot of people are gonna hate that my mom was a huge Woody Allen fan, but anyway, at Elaine's and listen to jazz music. Or she wanted to live in San Francisco Harbor on a houseboat and be a trial attorney for criminal cases. She wanted to be a costume designer for Edith Head in the 40s, of those huge movies with Grace Kelly and things like that. And my mom's death taught me one thing, because she was 64 when she passed away. And she got sick, and then she was dead within 3 months. And it was a very strange disease. My mom was very, very healthy, and she got a disease that literally you're gone within just a couple of months. And not many people get it. And it taught me that if there are things I want to do with my life, I better do them now. So let's get to this video. My mother loved James Joyce. She loved all of his books. And just to be honest with you, I have never read this book. I can't get into it. I have tried. My mother, when I was in high school, was like, one summer, she was like, you're going to read this book. It's one of my favorite books. You're going to read it. So I'm going to read it this summer for her. The next book, and I've talked a lot about this, and I'm talking really fast because I have to get this video done in time because the last one deleted, and I can't do that. Okay. To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. My mother loved this book. She had me read it when I was we read it together when I was in 4th or 5th grade. And I remember one of my mom's friends, I overheard her saying, don't you think it's kind of old for Peter? Talking about, rape and racism and things like that. My mom was like, absolutely not. The younger the better. I think he needs to be exposed to these things because this is the world, and it'll teach him to be a more compassionate person. I'm so thankful for the books that my mom introduced me to. I look back on them, and I don't think our high schools do a great job. I mean, everybody read To Kill a Mockingbird. But I don't think our high schools do a good job of really exposing us to some really great literature, memoirs, things like that out there that need to be read. And one of those for me was Soul on Ice by Eldridge Cleaver. And my mom had me read this when I was in high school. This is kind of a funny story, but the school that I went to literally had no diversity. And my mother was furious that we did not, one, have Black History Month, and number two, that we did not get Martin Luther King Day off from school. And so my mother always would call me in sick on Martin Luther King Day, and we would do like a history thing or go to church. And the second thing is that she would always like instill these books that I was supposed to read during Black History Month. And this was one of them that I read in high school. And this is about Eldridge Cleaver when he was in Folsom Prison, and it's his book about his life. And he was the president of the Black Panther Coalition. And he also ran for president under the Peace and Freedom Party ticket. If you have not read this book, it's super interesting. But the book that more impacted me was John Howard Griffin. You can see as I had to like look up his name. Black Like Me. But I have talked about this book literally my entire life. My mom had me read it. It's about a white journalist from Dallas, Texas. It's a true story. And he went to the Deep South and basically lived in blackface to experience what it was like to be black in the Deep South in 1961. Coming off the heels of To Kill a Mockingbird, where Atticus says you must walk around in somebody else's shoes to know what their life is really like, this book profoundly changed my soul, not my thinking, my soul, on how we look at the world, and the way that we're treated is how we treat others. And it's so interesting. If you have not read Black Like Me, you need to go pick it up. I mean, it is a book that I think that everybody should have to read before they graduate from high school. The next book that I'm going to talk about is, my mother loved J.D. Salinger. I've talked a lot about Catcher in the Rye on my channel. I was almost Holden. That was going to be my name, Holden. Can you imagine? There aren't many Holdens. There's tons of like Dylans, like Bob Dylan. This is the other thing, is that my mom writes in all her books. Like, she writes little notes to herself in them, and she did it on her record albums too. I just thought of that because she was a huge Bob Dylan fan. Anyway, lay lady lay. But her favorite J.D. Salinger book was not The Catcher in the Rye. It was Franny and Zoe. My mom absolutely loved Franny and Zoe. Look, it's like falling apart, okay? It's about a brother and a sister. If you haven't read it, do you guys know much about J.D. Salinger? Like, all the families are connected, so it's really super interesting. Go read it. You'll love it. If you like Catcher in the Rye, you'll love Franny and Zoe. Okay, my mother was a huge, and I have not read some of these books. Like, Franny and Zoe I read 20 years ago, but I don't remember much about it. My mother actually took several classes when she was a librarian at Northwestern. She did not go to Northwestern. She was an IU fan. Or IU alumni, Indiana University, which if she was sitting here right now, she would make very clear because she's a huge IU fan. But anyway, she took several classes on Japanese literature, and her entire life she loved Japanese literature. And she always wanted to go to Japan, and it was one of the things that she didn't do before she passed away, and it makes me kind of sad. But one of her favorite books was Yukio Mishima's Death in Midsummer, and it's his short stories. I have never read this. I'm going to read it this summer. And the other one was 1,000 Cranes by, I'm going to chop this up to bits, Yasunari Kawabata. And my mother read this book many times in her life. It was like near her bedside always. She loved it. I have never read it. I tried it. I couldn't get into it. I don't know what powerfully impacted her about it. Okay, the next book was, and my mother talked about this book incessantly, was Henry David Thoreau's Walden. And I have only read bits and pieces of this that I had to read for college classes because, see, it's very, very lengthy. 732 pages. And I can't tell you a whole lot about it except for I know it's his, observations on Walden Pond. The funny thing is that the house that I grew up in, my parents built, it was kind of like in this woods down the end of this street on a cul-de-sac. And so they were the first house in the street, and they got to name the street. And so my mom named the street Walden Place after Walden. Okay, next book. Now, do you know I live in Indianapolis? Do you know who else lived in Indianapolis? Kurt Vonnegut. And my mother was a ginormous Kurt Vonnegut fan. I am so thirsty. I'm sorry. And I have actually never read any of his books. So if you guys all have favorites, put them in the comment section below, and I will read the one that gets the most votes. I have tried to read Slaughterhouse 5 like 1,000 times. Okay, and I cannot get into it, and I have it right here, see? And Breakfast of Champions was one of my mom's favorite books, but her all-time favorite Kurt Vonnegut book, I actually had to throw it away because it just fell to pieces, was God Bless You, Mr. Rosewater. And I've never read it. Like I just said, I've never read any of his books. Can you believe that? Like, I like to consider myself, very well-read. I'm not. Anyway, I read what I want to read these days. So I'm going to read one of his books this summer as well. Okay. The next book, now I always pronounce this guy's name wrong. I don't know if it's Hermann Hesse or Hermann Hesse. And I always look it up, and I remember my mom saying it to me, and she'd say, Peter, it's and then I would like get it wrong. But anyway, Siddhartha and Journey to the East. Please somebody correct me in the section below. It won't upset me at all. I'll be educated on it. My mom talked about these books incessantly. I actually read both of them when I was in college. I do not remember either one of them. I remember something about a river with Siddhartha, but like it did not, those books did not impact me. The next book was Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. It's about his travels across the country with his dog Charlie. I actually read this when I was in high school and I really liked it. I remember reading it in the fall time and I thought it was really cute. He stops at a lot of places and meets people. I don't know why this was her favorite of all of John Steinbeck's books. On the back of it, it's like no cover even. Anyway, the next book is The Stranger by Albert Camus, and my mother loved existentialist literature. And she would sit here and she would say, I mean, Peter, have you read the first chapter? Mother died today. Or maybe it was yesterday. Did I get it right? Oh my God, I did! Mother died today, or maybe yesterday. I cannot believe. I have not read this book since I was 20 and I got it right. But anyway, this book is weird and depressing. I do not love existentialism or existentialist literature. She did. She just sit there, you know, with her bifocals low and just be like, I mean, she loved it. I don't know. I just didn't get into it. But a book that I did get into and I loved was Tender as a Night by F. Scott Fitzgerald. And it's semi-autobiographical, if you haven't read it, about he and his wife Zelda in Paris during the expatriates period. I loved it. I actually read this book before I got sober on my patio while I was drinking, and I'd just be like, oh my God, I thought I was so intellectual. I wasn't. But anyway, I also love Sun Also Rises by Hemingway. They're very, very similar. If you haven't read anything by that period, like Somerset Maugham's Moon and Sixpence and Gertrude Stein's pieces and things like that, I love that period. It's one of my favorite periods of literature ever. Now I'm starting to sound like a literature major. Oh, I was! Anyway, I can't believe I even remember anything. But I love this book so much. The next book was Brokeback Mountain by Annie Proulx, and this is actually a copy that my mom gave to me. See, she wrote, to Peter, Merry Christmas, December 2007, love Mom. That was actually the year before she passed away. That was the December before she passed away. My mother loved this book and this movie so much, and I think for her what it did was it validated that love is love, for people to see that in other ways. And I just remember, like, if you've read the book, it's different than the movie, but if you've seen the movie, at the end of the movie, when he opens the closet and he sees Jack's, I think it's Jack, his shirt hanging there or jacket, like, my mom would just sob, like, every time. And, like, I think, like, when I came out, she was very upset. And I said, Mother, I don't want you to be upset, blah, blah, blah. And she was so liberal, I didn't understand it. And she said, I'm not upset about you being gay, obviously. She said, I'm, like, as if I was a kitchen secret. But, she said, I'm worried about how society is going to treat you. And she said, society is not kind to gay people sometimes. And I think that book, for her, that resonated with her. And I think it also resonated in how you can change people's minds through simple gestures of kindness. And that was always what she taught me, and I'm so thankful for that. Okay, the next book is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. My mom and I read this one summer. It's a great summer read. Look, this is like the oldest copy in the world. If you have never read this book, go read it. It is so good. It's about this girl named Francie, and she lives in Brooklyn, and they're very, very poor. I think the father dies, and the mother has no money, and there's like this tree that grows out right in the middle of all their apartments and stuff. My mom and I used to make coffee in a percolator, I think decaf, because I must have been way too young, and read this book to each other, because they do that in the book. They like make coffee and put vanilla and charcoal in so it'll last longer or something. We used to do it, and then I remember watching the movie, and the movie is fantastic. I need a little bit of coffee towards the end of this video. Huckleberry Finn. Can you believe I've never read Huckleberry Finn? Next. Okay, my last book is The Little Prince. No, I'm going to read Huckleberry Finn, I think, this summer. Okay, maybe. I don't know. Probably not. Okay, I mean, I'm 43. I haven't read Huckleberry Finn. I don't know that I ever will. My mother loved The Little Prince. This book did not impact me whatsoever. It's about a prince that lands on a planet, and it's his own, and I just remember thinking that he was kind of entitled. My mom I would say that to her. I was like, he seems very entitled to me. She goes, well, he's a prince. I mean, and I'm like, but Mom, like, and she was like, no, it's beautiful. Don't you get it? I mean, don't you see the symbolism? I know I didn't get the symbolism of it. But those are the books. I will tell you this one last book. When my mom was sick in the hospital, I read Stephen Levine's A Year to Live. How to Live This Year as If It Were Your Last. I don't know if it was that I read this at a time that my mom was sick and I was in the hospital while she was going through multiple tests or what. But this book so powerfully changed my life and made me realize that if there are things I want to do with my life, I got to do them now, you know, and books can change that for me. Books can, you know, expose me to places around the world that I'll never get a chance to go, or lives that I'll never get to experience, or see through other people's eyes, or see things in a way that I never will in a million years be able to expose to, but open a book and go, ah, yes, I see it now, right? And then it can make me dream, and it can make me dream bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it makes me put action to those dreams. And that's really the whole idea of what life is all about. And I realized that sitting in, you know, the waiting room of the hospital, reading this book while my mom was sick. And so to kind of like round this whole thing out, books have changed my life. My mom introducing me to books have changed my life. I'm going to get teary-eyed and start crying. Can you see that? But I do miss her. And, you know, to go back and to look at the books that changed her life and made her a different person. I mean, I can pick any book of these, you know, out, and I can look at, you know, she would talk about Kurt Vonnegut all the time. She loved the Kurt Vonnegut Museum, and she knew everything about him, and it was like he was one of her friends. And that's what authors and books are for us, don't you think? And I'm so honored that my mom introduced me to the life of reading. So please do this video if you have a parent that loves to read, or a friend or a teacher or somebody that impacted you, and talk about their favorite books. I would love to see it. And if you have any Kurt Vonnegut selections or choices or whatever I'm trying to say, because I'm too emotional now that I'm losing my mind, I would love to read it. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.